Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Introductory DonorScape webinar training session. My name is Kat Banakis, and I'm the Manager for Client Engagement and Support at Grenzenbach Gleer & Associates Analytics.
And I'm Heather McCown, the Online Communications Specialist at GG&A.
Today we'll be going over some of the introductory features of DonorScape, including accessing DonorScape, interpreting a prospect record, verifying matched data, querying lists of prospects, and exporting your data into Excel and other reporting formats. I'm going to be pausing at key points throughout the webinar to answer your questions. To submit a question, hover over the green bar until you see a question mark or a conversation bubble.
Direct your questions to host, which is me. Any questions that we aren't able to get to during the session will be answered as part of the follow-up transcript that we'll email out to registrants. Following the session, we'll send out a link to a recording of today's session and a transcript of answers to any questions we didn't get to. If at any point during the webinar you're experiencing any technical difficulties, please send me an email at hmccoun@grenzglier.com. That's hmccown@grenzglier.com, or call our meeting provider, WebEx, directly at 866-229-3239. And this information is also available in the chat box.
Finally, I need to tell you that all names presented during all GG&A DonorScape training sessions, including today's session, are from public records and bear no relationship to any GG&A client institutions. The names have been appended with fictional giving data and relationship data and are included for demonstration purposes only. So let's get started. This is the DonorScape main website. It is www.mydonorscape.com. And when you go to this website, you will see that we have TrustE VeriSign Secure, which is 128-bit encryption security. It's the same encryption security as your bank websites and that sort of thing. And I'm going to log in here using a unique username and password. When you have an account with DonorScape, you can have as many users as you would like, but the same username can only be used by one person at a time. So if you have more than one user, be sure that you have more than one username, otherwise you will bounce one another out of the system. If you should ever forget your password, you can click here and have it emailed to you as a temporary password. And if you are ever having trouble of a password or another sort, you can always call us at our hotline number here, 866-378-8540, or email our support team, support@donorscape.com. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. And this takes us to the main home page. On this home page, we'll see new updates and news that we have posted. As some of you know, we've started in the last few months a blog series of advice and conversations related to prospect research and application of data. We also post updates about the DonorScape system itself, conferences we'll be at, that sort of thing. Here in the right-hand side, you have a summary of your contract provisions, including searches remaining, expiration date, that sort of thing. In the bottom left here, we have the alerts category, and every Sunday night, the system scans for new information about your prospects from our different vendor databases, and if new information is available about new property changes of professional positions, that sort of thing, it would appear here. You're only going to receive alerts if you have prospects assigned to you. And we go through details related to prospect assignments in the advanced session. But if you were to log in here and you had updates, that's because there's new information on a prospect assigned to you. Also, we have a new support website, which I encourage you to take a look at any point following this session. We have archives of this and other webinars that you are welcome to look at your leisure, our entire print guide, user's guide, quick references, and it can be searched for keywords. We have YouTube videos of favorite features, which you are welcome to do, and then the other main function tabs here. The heart and soul of what we're going to be looking at today is under the Data Results tab. And we're going to begin here in order to understand what records are within the DonorScape system and how it works. When you log into the Data Results tab, a good deal of information is presented all at once. So I want to break down what you're looking at on the screen here. We're going to start from the bottom. And what we're looking at here is the first 15 records of your entire universe. So this account has 9,998 records in it. The first 15 of which, 1 through 15, are visible on this screen. If I had more than 10,000 records in this account, this would read 10,000 of 1 million records because the system defaults to pull up the top 10,000. But it's always going to show just 15 at a time of your total universe and the top 10,000 therein. The first name is highlighted in peach, and this name that's in peach is going to be magnified in the upper left-hand corner. So here we're looking at Stephen Kaplan, who lives in East Brunswick, New Jersey. We see him here in peach, and then his name is magnified in the gray box to the upper left-hand corner. If I click on View Prospect Details under his name, it's going to show me everything that was input about Stephen into the system. So this is what you, as the client, have submitted to the software in terms of what you know about this prospect. So here, looking at Stephen, we can see that his home address is 8 Brown Court in East Brunswick, New Jersey. We don't have any giving history for him, nor do we have any business affiliation information or seasonal addresses. All we know is his name and home address, which is the baseline of what we need in order to screen a record. At the bottom here, you can see there are a number of text fields for each record. And these are the fields that we have for clients to be able to track things that are of import to them. So in this account, they have membership type as one of the fields they want to look at, active or inactive. Then there are a number of text fields here that they have not yet populated. So you might populate those fields with whether someone is a gala attendee, different things about their history. You want to think through what would be common denominators that you would want to pull lists on for what you're going to populate in these fields here. You don't necessarily want to be populating with something that's going to change day to day, but rather something that's going to be relevant and meaningful content for pulling out records in the future. The data that you put in here is not actually screened through the software and doesn't have a bearing on their score. It's just what would be helpful to you in this miscellaneous category. So looking back at his record, we know his home address, and that is going to be the basis for what we use to determine his gift capacity rating. Now, the logic of how DonorScape works is that it takes everything that you input about a prospect into the system, in this case, the name and home address, and runs it against these 12 publicly available databases. And by running it against the databases and using an algorithm that we have, we determine a profile of giving for each prospect within the system. And that profile of giving tries to determine how much we think this prospect has to give away philanthropically over the next 5 years to all institutions that he or she cares about. So here for Stephen Kaplan, we have a gift capacity rating of 1, which corresponds to more than $10 million over the next 5 years to all philanthropic institutions. If we click on James Brown, he has a gift capacity rating of 2. That corresponds to between $1 million and $10 million over the next 5 years, or $200,000 a year to $2 million a year over the next 5 years to all institutions that Mr. Brown cares about. The gift capacity rating is not tied to their affinity for your institution in particular. Now, in order to look at how we come up with this capacity rating, I'm going to go through each of the 12 vendor tabs. First, I'm going to go through the 12 vendor tabs, and then I'm going to go over what all of these E's and N's and P's and S's mean and what bearing they have on their score. But in order to be able to look at just one person at a time and to have a little less going on the screen, I'm going to isolate just one record. I want to look only at Peter Nolan's record. And in order to isolate Mr. Nolan's record, I can either click on that, and that's going to highlight him within the whole system, or I can pull him up by his name or his prospect ID in the bottom left. The prospect ID, which you see right here on his record, along with the date he was inserted and updated, the prospect ID is what's known in database management world as a primary key. You could conceivably have 2 Peter Nolans in your database. You could even have 2 Peter Nolans in California in your database. So the prospect ID is the unique identifier that is connected just to this particular Peter Nolan in your database. For most clients, their prospect ID is going to be the same ID number that they use in their donor management system day to day. But that's not true for everybody. Particularly healthcare clients don't necessarily have that because you might be screening people through DonorScape before they enter your prospect management system in the case of frequent patient screenings or something like that. But we do, for Peter, have a prospect ID. So I'm going to put it down here in the quick query function. And that's going to let me look at just Mr. Nolan. So here I have him pulled up. And in order to look at each of these vendor tabs, I'm going to click on the letter that's underneath it. Now, our vendors fall broadly into 3 categories. They have data related to hard assets, philanthropic activity, and general biographical information. So here we have Waltman Director, which includes people who sit on corporate, nonprofit, and foundation boards. We have a Peter J. Nolan. We don't know our Peter Nolan. If we go back and look at his record here, I'm clicking data results, we don't know his middle initial. So I don't know if it's the correct Peter Nolan or not. All I know about him here is that he lives at 203 2nd Street, Seal Beach. And do we know anything else on him? No. We know that he doesn't have an assigned gifts list, but I don't know much of anything else. So Waltman Director is corporate, nonprofit, and foundation boards. We've got a Peter J. Nolan at Leonard Green and Partners in LA, who is sitting on the board of the Children's Bureau Foundation. Waltman Donor is taken from the annual reports of nonprofit institutions, of which I'm sure many of you produce on an annual basis in shiny print. Our real estate provider is LexisNexis Real Properties, and that is taken from quarterly county assessor reports. It is possible that you may know of a prospect sale or acquisition before it appears in DonorScape, because the county might not have submitted the quarterly assessor report most recently. But here we see for Mr. Nolan that we have the 203 2nd Street property in Seal Beach, California. And this is also going to bring in any other properties that have their tax bills sent to the same place. So here we have 203 2nd Street in Seal Beach, and I'm going to click on this down blue caret here because we have another record, and I can see that because it says 2 records here under exact. And it's bringing in a second property that also mails its tax bills to the Seal Beach address, but the physical address for this property is in Boston. Dun & Bradstreet provides information on business ownership, equity, and leadership positions at public and private companies. We've got one match here at 1000 Oaks Company. GuideStar Public, as I'm sure many of you are well aware, is one of the nonprofit rating sites online, and in order to be part of GuideStar, you have to submit your 990 tax returns that include information on everyone who sits on your board of directors. GuideStar Private is similar. Mr. Nolan doesn't have a rating for that, but it is the GuideStar Private and Family Foundation source, so it's taken from their 991 tax returns and people who sit on those boards. Our stock source is SEC Insider through Edgar's, and it includes stock transitions for top employees, people who own more than 10% of stock, officers or directors of publicly traded companies. So it's only going to have stock transactions for people who are considered insiders. It isn't indicative of a person's entire stock portfolio by any means. You can see their inside transactions by transaction, options transactions, or in holding summary. So here we have the holding summary. Reuters Market Guide includes information on over 10,000 companies and provides what I find to be very handy-dandy paragraphs on both the individual and their companies. Here we see that we have 5 possible matches for Peter Nolan's in California, and each of them is going to pull up a different biography and a different company brief. Marquis is the collection of who's who directory guides of who's who of American high school seniors fame or something like that. And if you scroll down to the bottom left, anything that's got a blue dot next to it has populated information there. So for Peter F. Nolan, we have information about his family, a son, a spouse, information on past positions, creative works that he's done in the past. He was a contributor to professional journals, memberships of different organizations. Larkspur is a pension holding site. CorpTech is similar to Reuters Market Guide and to Dun & Bradstreet. It's a professional site but has information just on tech companies. And FEC is the Federal Election Campaign Contribution site, where we can see past giving to federal election campaigns. So those are the sources that are used in creating someone's profile. Now, as no doubt you noticed in going through all of these sites, we found a number of different Peter Nolans in the system. There was a Peter J. Nolan, a Peter F. Nolan. Not all of them are the Peter Nolan that we are looking for. And in order to account for this, DonorScape attributes each match to one of the vendor tables with one of these 4 match quality ratings here in the bottom right: exact, near, possible, and simple. Exact being the most verified data, and simple being the least verified pieces of data. And you can see what constitutes the different matches when we look at them individually. So here we have an E, an exact match for the real estate holding. It's matching here on first name, last name, home street, home city, home state, home zip code, and home metropolitan statistic area. It's got the Seal Beach address. It's an exact match. And it also tells us an important piece of data here, that his middle initial is M. So now we know that the person we are looking for is Peter M. Nolan. Now when we go back, and if we were to look at one of the other data matches, so here I'm going to click on simple under Waltman Director, which is the least verified level of match. It's going to pull up his match for that board that we looked at earlier. There we go. So we can see that it's matching just on first name, last name, and home state. And we know that because we have already verified based on the exact match of his home property address that he is Peter M. Nolan, not Peter J. Nolan, that this is a different Peter Nolan. It's not the Peter we're looking for. So we can delete this match entirely. If we were to click on it right here and then click delete, it would take it out of his record. If, on the other hand, it were our correct Peter M. Nolan, we could change the match quality rating right here from an F for simple up to an E for exact, and it would remain so in his record. It matters greatly what we set these different E's, N's, P's, and S's to for each of the data matches, because it's going to inform what his gift capacity rating is. If we include all information on all Peter Nolans in California, he's got a gift capacity rating of 1, more than 10 million over 5 years. But if we include just exact and near data, which is going to pull in matches and their spouse pairs, his gift capacity rating goes down to a 5 of between 25,000 and 100,000 over 5 years. And we can see what's driving this score also if we look under the custom ratings calculator. So here we can see that it's just bringing in his real estate scores with LexisNexis. And if I click on the custom ratings calculator, we can also see there that it's pulling in 2 properties with about 1.7 million value. If we were to go and look at all of the data in his, for Peter Nolan's, where his score jumps up to a 1, we can see that what's driving that score is the income, the FEC donations, and the stock transactions in there. So part of what happens in the glorious world of prospect research is the process of going through and figuring out what is and what isn't valid data for your prospect, and changing those match quality ratings so that you're including in their score the valid data and not including other Peter Nolans. I am a huge fan of Reuters Market Guide for this purpose because it does give you those paragraphs of information. So we have up here 5 different Peter Nolans, each with a different professional profile. But we know because of that real estate holding, the middle initial, and here we're going to be able to verify that this Peter Nolan, president of Dole Worldwide Packaged Foods, is the Peter Nolan that we want to look for. And then it's going to help verify other pieces of information within his record. Most of our clients, when they first start out, are going to keep the rating set to exact and near for those more verified pieces of data. But as you get more familiar with the system, as you get down into the depths of your prospect pool in the database, you may want to include more information on your prospects. Or you may want to look at the exact, near, possible, and simple, that most aggressive level for top prospects only to see what more you can find. Okay, I am going to pause there temporarily and see if we have any questions about anything related to, no, we are doing well. Fantastic. All right, I'm going to just look quickly at the custom ratings calculator again. And while I do that, if you have any questions about anything we've talked about so far, now would be a great time to write in and just let us know if you need clarification on anything. So we were looking before at, oh, let me go back. I want to set this to exact and near to just pull in that property information on Mr. Nolan. The custom ratings calculator allows us to do a couple things. One is that it lets you see what's driving somebody's score. The other is that it lets you run a hypothetical. So say, for instance, you have been closely following Peter M. Nolan in Seal Beach, California, and you find out that his Boston property is in foreclosure. It is no longer a valid piece of property whatsoever. All he has is the Seal Beach address. And you want to find out what his new hypothetical rating would be if you included only one of the properties. And his single property is actually very modest for Seal Beach. And it is one property valued at $300,000, and he's actually 57. So I'm putting in these things here just to run a hypothetical on him. I'm going to click recalculate, and the system is thinking, and then it's coming up here with this hypothetical score of a 6 between 10,000 and 25,000 over 5 years instead of the 5. It's not going to permanently change his rating within the system, but it is going to change his rating here so that you can see what it would be. Now, because all of this information about the prospects is related to these vendor tables, and because these vendor tables are rescreened each Sunday night, some of them only have new information once a year, like GuideStar, because you only submit your taxes once a year. The stock transactions, though, are updated weekly, and on our support site, you can see the entire update schedule for how frequently all the things are updated. But people's gift capacity ratings up here can change over time with major life events. They sell or buy a property, they get a new job, they retire, they make a huge donation, they join a board. All of these things can